Quality education for the whole person without prejudice based on origin or social situation was a hallmark for Mackenzie since its beginning in 1870. A reformed Christian vision gives focus to an integral education of human beings, created in the image and likeness of God for life in society and the realization of their full potentials. Focusing on the humanities and the sciences, Mackenzie is committed to development and progress, with social and environmental responsibility and a constant quest for excellence in academics and in the management of its resources. Today, Mackenzie is present in several states and
Hello?
Hi, Professor. How are you? Continue. You hear us?
Hello?
Yeah?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Professor. Just passing some video, and then we start in some minutes, okay?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Well, do you want me to take, go back in the video?
Yes, please. Yes. Then later on, you go continue with
Okay.
the drill, okay? Thank you so much. Tiago, I think you don't have audio, at least for me.
What?
I don't have an audio for video. Yeah, at least
You
for
don't
me.
have the audio for video?
No.
Okay.
For me also, Thiago, I
Okay.
guess you need to share audio also.
Okay. Sorry.
Mackenzie is a century-old
Okay.
institution built on the pillars of education, faith, and philanthropy. Quality education for the whole person without prejudice based on origin or social situation was a hallmark for Mackenzie since its beginning in 1870. A reformed Christian vision gives focus to an integral education of human beings, created in the image and likeness of God for life in society and the realization of their full potentials. Focusing on the humanities and the sciences, Mackenzie is committed to development and progress, with social and environmental responsibility and a constant quest for excellence in academics and in the management of its resources. Today, Mackenzie is present in several states and relies on a growing infrastructure to serve students from elementary school through graduate and professional education. Mackenzie is also engaged in the field of healthcare through its hospitals, as well as in agriculture and technical education through trade schools and a farming school. In the fulfillment of our calling to provide a well-rounded and engaged education, we have pioneered in Brazil by always including sports as a key component of education, boasting well-known players in various sports since our founding, and year after year, increasing investments in our Olympic and Paralympic athletes. Not only have sports been an important part of our history, but also Mackenzie has been recognized for its significant role in Brazilian sports history. We continue to chart new paths to expand and reach other Brazilian cities and regions in accordance with our strategic expansion project, including our recently acquired hospitals and medical school. Beyond simply offering technical and professional skills, Mackenzie is concerned with the whole person. In basic education, we have schools providing quality and cutting-edge education in several locations. We have our educational materials and textbooks, the Mackenzie Teaching System, and Mackenzie Educational. Not only our own schools, but also hundreds of partner schools use these teaching resources. In this way, we are offering the Mackenzie pioneering tradition, as well as a Christian worldview applied to education to all of Brazil. True to our international origins, we also offer to our school students English language immersion programs and partnerships with well-known institutions for double diplomas with validity in Brazil and abroad. As an inherent part of the Christian worldview and life view, philanthropy is a crucial part of Mackenzie. Besides need-based scholarship programs in all levels of education, or the many social programs in partnership with third-party service providers, the free program for young people and adults without access to education, AEJA, is a great example of our commitment, opening the doors for a university education, expanding horizons for a full life in society with hope and confidence. That is the Mackenzie way of caring. In higher education, our several campi offer courses in a wide variety of areas. From the humanities to exact sciences, life sciences, and healthcare. The tradition of excellence and quality the Brazilian society has so fully recognized continues to expand to new areas and segments. The first-rate infrastructure, coupled with a highly educated and experienced teaching staff, in an environment that encourages research and innovation. These things are part of what makes Mackenzie so unique. Within this framework, Mackenzie has also established specialized research and teaching centers in areas related to economics, astrophysics, engineering, nanotechnology, complexity studies, and other emerging fields, educating people with abilities that are adopted to new times. Our professors are consistent and capable in their teaching activities. This has allowed Mackenzie to expand horizons, also by making distance education a reality that is spread into many regions of Brazil. Mackenzie also has a footprint beyond Brazil. Our structure, tradition, and pioneering spirit have positioned us strategically in relationship to international institutions. The hundreds of partnership and cooperation agreements with colleges, universities, and research centers around the world reflect this reality. As a result, our students and professors have innumerable opportunities to participate in exchange programs, and we often receive foreign students, both of which contribute to a culturally and academically rich and dynamic environment. Our extension programs are another important contribution to our academic mission by expanding learning experiences, fostering social relationships, and providing quality continuing education. The importance and excellence of Mackenzie educational tradition is recognized in very objective terms by its position at the top tier of the best university rankings in Brazil. We are committed to education in humanities, technology, and sciences that shapes professionals for leading roles in society, whether in the market workforce or in the academic world. Mackenzie is preparing for now and for the future.
Good afternoon, everybody. Now we are going to present our master and doctorate program very quickly, and after that we are going to introduce the speech and continue the event. So in our master and doctorate program, we have 3 lines of research that are controllership, finance, accounting, and governance, and management technologies. In our master program, we have 54 credits, 4 obligatory disciplines and 4 optative ones. And the fields of research are the 3 ones that we talked about before. We need to do a dissertation to finish the course. About the PhD program, 180 credits, 6 obligatory disciplines, and 8 optatives. The conclusion of the program needs a thesis. We are ranked at 5, that is the highest by the Brazilian organization CAPES, and we are very proud of our program. If there is someone interested, please contact us. Okay, that's it. Now we officially start the day. I'm going to introduce you, Professor the day, and Professor Allan, and our Professor Yodomari. So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Today is the 3rd day of lectures of the 50th Mackenzie meeting on financial controllership and management technologies. This year, the theme chosen for the event is performance, sustainability, and technology, changing business challenges. Today, we are honored to have the presence of Professor Allan Hansen from Copenhagen Business School in Denmark. Professor, if I spelled your name wrong, I'm sorry. Professor Allan Hansen is Associate Professor of Copenhagen Business School, specializing in performance management. He teaches and conducts research on performance measurement, evaluation, and incentives within organizations. Allan's research interests focus on understanding the behavioral consequences of performance management, system design, and process in both public and private sector organizations. Primarily using empirically grounded research, he aims to advance insights into the use and impact of specific performance management system designs, including KPIs, target setting, feedback, feed-forward process, and rating rankings. His research has been published in a broad range of books, accounting, and operational management journals, such as Management Account, Research, Accounting, Organization Society, European Accounting Review, and the International Journal of Operation and Production System. Today, joining the lecture as a mediator, I am announcing to introduce Professor Yodomari. Professor Yodomari holds a PhD in controllership from FEA-USP. He is currently a professor and the coordinator of the postgraduate program Controllership Finance Management Technologies at Mackenzie Presbyterian University. He also teaches at INSPER. Research includes performance indicators, management account techniques, interventionism research. He is a co-author of the book Management Accounting, and he has published articles in both national and international journals. Additionally, he serves as an advisory board and participates in consulting projects. Thank you, Professor. The lecture is in format of a discussion expected to last 40 minutes, and following we begin with the Q&A session. We ask everybody to keep their camera and microphones off, and please send the question via chat. Thank you all. Professor Allan, it's an honor to have you here. You can start your lecture.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I will just try to share my slides. Do you see them? Or?
Yes.
So you see my slides?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, excellent. Super, thank you, and thanks for the nice introduction. It's really a pleasure to be here. This is my first time in Brazil, so I'm really looking forward to it. What we have decided that I should present today is one of the papers that I'm currently working on, and it is titled Exploring Design Qualities and Their Interdependencies in Performance Measurement Systems Design. And it is a paper that tries to outlines the contours of a new meta structure in a performance measurement system. I guess it may sound a little bit complicated just reading the title, but I hope the idea in the paper and the analysis that is conducted in the paper is something that also can in a more simple way provide some more insights into the issue of performance measurement systems design in organizations, because that is very much what I'm interested in. So what I will do today is that I will briefly talk a little bit more about the motivation for writing the paper, and then a bit about how the paper is framed, and then something about the analysis, and then finally the conclusions, and that relates very much to or include a characterization of this meta structure that I believe that we should maybe pay more attention to when we, for instance, conduct research, but also when we design systems in practice. And I just been arriving from a session today with a lot of practitioners and managers from Denmark. And we have been discussing this meta structure and these design choices that are related to performance measures. And I think many of the dimensions that it includes provides a good platform for start discussing to what extent our design of our performance measurement systems in our organizations are good or bad, or to what extent that they are effective. And I think the paper maybe can help a bit in that process and enlightening more, providing more insights to what performance measurement system design is all about. I think it's interesting to discuss performance measurement systems in organizations, because they tell us a lot about how we create value and what we are responsible for, and how we become successful also in the future. And that is, of course, also something that we can use for implementing not only strategies about how we create value in the organization, but also sustainability, of course, innovativeness, and all these things. So performance measurement systems plays a major role in implementing and executing whatever strategic objectives we have in the organization. And that is the reason why I think that performance measures are so interesting. They can, of course, be leading to a lot of dysfunctional consequences. And that is something that we should address as designers and also as users of performance measurement systems. But I think when you look into the literature and you look into what it is actually that, how is it that performance measurement systems are researched, and how is it that we provide more insight to what they mean in organization, we tend to black box them quite a bit. So we have a lot of accounting research that talks about performance measurement systems as if they were one thing. But the point here in this paper is to follow that stream of research that actually tries to open up the black box and look a bit more into what design is and how design makes a difference. Because the idea is that, well, we can design a performance measurement system in lots of different ways, and that is, of course, a very important thing to deal with and to analyze and try to understand when we are controllers in the organizations or consultants or whoever we are. When we use performance measurement system, the design really matters. That is the idea. So the point is also that when those guys that actually look into the design and discuss the design, they do it by very much focusing upon what it is that we measure by the performance measurement system. So a discussion of design of performance measures is very much about what are the measures that we have chosen. What are they all about? Do we measure customer satisfaction, sustainability, productivity, or what is it that we measure? That's one thing that actually takes up the discussion of performance measurement system design thoughts. Another thing is that, well, we could also discuss how we set the targets. Is it a hard target or hard to obtain, or challenging to obtain or achieve, or is it a realistic target that we can all achieve? So that's another design issue that has been discussed quite often, and also the weighting issues. How much should the individual dimension that we measure, how should that be weighted against each other? So these things are all about how about what we actually measure, and what are the choices of performance measures, the dimensions that we include, how we set the target, and how we weight. I think that is, of course, extremely important, and that there are lots of very important analyses around performance measures that go in that direction. But maybe we should also try to go into another direction that looks more into some more abstract qualities of the design that is actually constituted by these what issues, but represent a discussion of how we actually measure sustainability or value creation, productivity or innovativeness, or whatever it is that we are interested in. And that is also something that has been done in the literature, because there are lots of discussions of more abstract qualities of the performance measurement system design, like, for instance, diversity, subjectivity, collectivity, and relativity. These are all important subtopics in the discussion of performance measurement system design, but they are never discussed in combination. So it's always discussions of these qualities in isolation. So either we focus on subjectivity, or we focus on collectivity, or we focus on relativity. We do not try to combine them. And I think that is extremely important for understanding the effectiveness of performance measurement systems. And that is what I try to demonstrate in this paper, how they interact, these more abstract qualities of the design. But to give you a better idea of what they mean, the four qualities, and I think these four qualities are extremely important and deserves attention in combination, because they interact. Because you could also argue there are probably other qualities that you could have included, but I think those four here, they are super interesting because they shape a system together. They are interacting and interdependencies between them. And that is what we see in practice when we start to focus on their interrelationships in system designs in organizations. And lots of people have written about them, but still in isolation, not in combination. And that is what we try to do in this paper here. So what is it all about? What is it, this diversity about? What is subjectivity about? What is collectivity about? And what is relativity about? Well, we have distinctions in the literature, and when we characterize a system, like for instance a balance scorecard that maybe measure sustainability or productivity, employee satisfaction or whatever, we have diversity. We represent performance by adding multiple dimensions of performance. So that is an example of a diverse system. And that is something that many argues we should do in order to make more complete performance measures. We should add more dimensions, because then we will have better performance measurement systems. But there are also others that argues that can be too much. Maybe we should focus on more simple systems. So maybe the most simple system is a one-dimensional system. That is one that only measure the employee on one aspect of his or her job. So that is the alternative. And that is a very important debate in performance measurement system design discussions. Should we have few measures or many measures. And there are good arguments for both of them, and there can be dysfunctional consequences of both of these aspects as well. But the point is that it actually represents a dimension that we should consider when we start to discuss how should we design the measurement system. Should it be a one-dimensional one, a simple one, or should it be more multidimensional? That is what diversity is about. And that is one thing that we either consciously or unconsciously make choices about when we design our performance measurement system. Another very important discussion in the design literature is also the distinction between an objective and a subjective measure. Because objective measures are in the literature defined by being a measure that is verifiable by an outside third party. And that is maybe not a kind of common understanding of what objectivity means. Maybe even objectivity could be a criteria that we can use for designing the system, that we strive for objectivity. But in the literature, it's just a quality. It's just a characterization of the system. So you could choose an objective measure that can be good or bad, and you can also choose an objective, a subjective measure. The subjective measure is one where you invite the manager to assess the performance of the employee, and that is what makes it subjective, because then we have a subject, the manager in this case, that actually assess performance, and that is widely used. Of course, we have lots of ratings in performance measurement systems, and there are lots of advantages of doing that, but there are also lots of disadvantages of doing that. And the consequences depends on the individual organizational setting. That is at least the theoretization that I draw upon in this paper, the contingency framework, so to speak. So there's also a very important choice that deals with, well, should we go in an objective direction or more subjective direction? There are lots of examples of systems that are super successful that are subjective. So it's just a characterization about where the manager is actually doing the judgment. It's not a measurement methodology that can be verified by an outside third party. So that is another quite important distinction that actually makes it makes a difference in terms of the consequences that the system have, is the idea. And then we also have collectivity. It's also extremely important for the consequences of the system and the behavioral effects that we see in organization when we design, whether the system is individual or more collective oriented. So we may have a system that includes a lot of individual measures, but the alternative is to have more team-based, group-based, department-based, even company-based measures included in the evaluation of the employee. So that is also a very important choice, whether you emphasize individuality or collectivity in your system. Of course, in practice, we very often combine them. We very often have individual measures as well as collective measures in order to actually exploit the advantages of both of them and try to minimize or mitigate some of the dysfunctional consequences of them in organizations. And that is the same for subjectivity and objectivity. We very often combine them. But in this paper, it is, of course, it has an analytical aim. So the idea is to separate them and discuss more carefully how subjectivity, what it is, and what are the pros and cons of that, and what the same as for collectivity and diversity. And the final one is relativity. Relativity is also a huge debate in the literature. So, and that, what is that about? That is about comparison. So think about when you design a system, whether you compare your employees in order to understand what performance is all about and what value creation is all about, or whether you have an absolute measure of their performance. That also have a huge impact, because if the employee believe or feel, perceive that, well, my performance depends on how my peers, they will perform. So I'm in a kind of competition with them in regard to how well I perform. That will, of course, have a very negative effect on collaboration in the organization. So that is a dysfunctional consequence of using these kinds of measures in an incentive system or in a performance evaluation. But you can, of course, also experience a situation where there is no need for collaboration. And in that case, it will lead to no distortion of behavior, to no discollaboration, because there is no need for collaboration in that setting. So the relative system can, of course, also in some contexts be extremely effective and really drive motivation and value creation in the organization. So relativity is the concept that, of course, also in practice and in general have a lot of different meanings. But in this paper, I refer to the literature about performance measurement system design. And here it's very much about comparison between agents or employees. It can also be comparisons between teams if we are interested in understanding team performance, or departments if we're interested in understanding department performance. So that is the third dimension. And the argument is that, well, these design choices that relates to those four dimensions, whether we are one-dimensional or multidimensional, objective or subjective, individual or collective, absolute or relative, it matters when it comes to performance evaluation and incentive provisions in organization, because they influence behavior, the same kinds of behavior. So what I do in the paper is that I try to connect them to three major behavioral issues that are related to evaluating performance by means of a performance measurement system, namely distortion, risk, and manipulation. Because these four dimensions, they have an impact on how the performance measurement system distorts behavior, how it leads to increased or reduced risk, or what is also used in the literature, controllability. That is the concept of risk here that I refer to. To what extent is it risky for the agent to be measured by the performance measurement system? Is it controllable or is it uncontrollable? So risk, the problem of risk, and that is something that influence controllability. So if the performance measurement system is extremely risky, it is highly uncontrollable. And that is, of course, something that we should try to avoid as managers that design performance measurement system or designers of performance measurement system, to mitigate the risk and to mitigate the uncontrollability, because that is something that leads to demotivation. So risk is the other issue, behavioral issue, because risk leads to demotivation. And the final one, manipulation, is about opportunistic behavior, because sometimes when we are measured and we are even rewarded based on the system, then we start to manipulate it. So there's a lot of literature about how, for instance, collectivity leads to moral hazard, to free riding, and that is, of course, a problem. But on the other hand, subjectivity also influences moral hazard issues, and so do relativity. So it depends on the behavioral consequence of the system depends on to what extent that we actually, or the design choices that we have made on those 4 dimensions, because they all somehow at least can be connected to the behavioral consequence of the system. That is the idea in the paper. And the 4 dimensions also represent what we can say 4 strategies. So it's 4 ways to make the performance measurement system more complete in a sense. It is about some way or another providing more information about what good information is, what good performance is when it comes to assessing the employees' performance. So these are extremely important design choices, those that are connected to the 4 dimensions. And if we are not aware of them, if they are not consciously made, these decisions, then they are at least unconsciously made, and they have an impact on behavior. That is at least the reading from the literature. Yeah, this is just a kind of summary of the 4 dimensions and how they may lead to 4 distinct choices that we should be aware of, to what extent that we add collectivity to the system, diversity, subjectivity, and relativity. That will impact behavior. That will impact the consequences of your performance measurement system in the organization. And that is, of course, something you then should be aware of if you design performance measurement systems, because we want to avoid to lead into too much dysfunctional consequences of the system, of course. So the aim of this paper was basically to demonstrate that these 4 qualities that we very often see in performance measurement systems, that they interact. Because if they interact, and if we can demonstrate, show that it's likely that they interact, then we should start to think of them as a combination of choices that we should be aware of. Because we may have a very negative effect from adding diversity, but then we can maybe compensate from that by adding subjectivity. Or we may have a very positive effect of adding collectivity that is somehow in conflict with the relative aspect that we also have in our system. So there are interactions between them. Therefore, it is extremely important that we somehow at least make it more explicit what we do with the performance measurement design along those dimensions here. That is the idea. But the aim of the paper is basically to demonstrate that they are interconnected and there are interdependencies between the dimensions. Because if there were no interdependencies, then we could talk about the dimensions in isolation, just as the literature has already done. But the point is that there's a lot of indications about that they kind of connect through causing the same types of effects of the systems in practice. And we have lots of studies that demonstrate that, and that is what I try to show in the paper, in the analysis, basically. So yeah, I think I will skip that one. I have already talked a bit about that one. So if we want to understand interdependencies, what does that then mean? What is it? What is it all about? Well, interdependencies between elements in an organization can, of course, be theorized in lots of different ways. I draw in this paper on Thomson. Thompson has written a book very many years ago about interdependencies in organization, and it's a kind of seminal book that really flesh out what are the core issues that are at stake, and I was very inspired by reading it again. So I think he really has something to offer when it comes to understanding the consequences of things or interdependencies between elements in organizations, and it of course aligns very well with what we already know from system theory if we have read that stream of literature. But I think it's interesting because what he highlights is that, well, two elements are interdependent if they somehow have effects that interrelate. So it's very much the effect of doing things and the interconnection between the effects that is interesting for understanding their interdependencies. So so if I do something with subjectivity in my design, and that leads to distortion, and I also do something with collectivity, and that also do something to distortion, then they are kind of interconnected. So that is why his theoretization is interesting and helpful and useful in order to theorize interdependencies. And basically the research question of the paper is then, well, first of all, to characterize the four qualities, and I've already spent some time on highlighting that, but on the other hand also to explore and demonstrate the interdependencies between the qualities. And that is what I do in the analysis. And the analysis is split in two parts. So we have one that actually talks about what are the effects of the four qualities in regard to distortion, risk, and manipulation, each of them in isolation. And then the second step that tries to see, well, where is it that they interconnect when we look at those effects that are included in the paper. There's of course a tons of different effects of using subjectivity or collectivity or relativity in organizations, but I focus on those that relates to distortion, risk, and manipulation, and that makes it possible to kind of study their interactions in regard to those effects that I've highlighted in the paper and that are demonstrated in the literature. So there are a lot of literature that actually give us more insights to what the behavioral consequences are in regard to those three areas. And this is just a summary of the first step of the analysis. And here you can see that, well, it makes a difference very often to what extent you go in a more diverse direction or in a more subjective direction in regard to the three aspects here: distortion, risk, and manipulation. Okay, how much time do I have left? 5 minutes? Is that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Good. So that is the first step, and the second step is then to try to look into the table that I just presented for you and try to understand where is it that they interact, and based on those effects that I have highlighted here, it's very clear that they do interrelate. And there are lots of different types of interdependencies, and we can even use a scholar like Bedford for sorting out different types of relationships or interdependencies between them. So sometimes they support each other. There are lots of complementarity between them, and other times there are conflicts. It depends on the effects that actually arise in the organization. And that is, of course, something that we cannot theorize here, but it depends on practice. And that is something that we should be aware of as managers in organization and practitioners and designers. Well, what are the effects of using collectivity in my setting? Is it so that it will lead to free riding, or is that unlikely? Because we may have a norm that prevents that. We look after each other and we expect that all of us perform in the team. So in that case, a collective measure will not lead to free riding. So there is a social control that kind of deals with that. So it depends on the context. But nevertheless, we can look into the effects and highlights that there are potential interactions here, and that is the interesting thing. That is what we will that actually legitimize and justify that we think of those four elements in combination. That is the idea. And that also brings me to some of the conclusions that well, if that is the case, then we should maybe also think about not only what are the measures that we choose here, what is it that we include in our balanced scorecard, for instance, customer satisfaction, productivity, return on investment, EBITDA, whatever it is. That is, of course, extremely important to discuss, and also how we set targets for that. But the next step is to understand, well, to what extent are these measures subjective or relative, or individual or collective, or how diverse are they, the measures that we include? That is also something that will tell us more about potential effects of our system, and something that we should start to think about and be aware of designers, all four of them, because they interact is the idea. And the point is that we could simply start to map our systems according to those dimensions, because the literature already demonstrated that they are significant. We can imagine a system that is extremely simple, what I refer to in the paper as the initial system. That is an objective system, or that is characterized by being objective, one-dimensional, individual, and absolute. That system, like for instance, if we measure a sales employee on only sales revenue, and that's an individual measure, that will be a very simple system that includes no subjectivity, no collectivity, no relativity, and no diversity. But that's also a very incomplete measure. So we will probably ask ourselves, well, should we add a bit more dimensions, go more into the diverse direction? Should we also add some more team-based measures? Should we include more subjectivity, because we maybe also want to measure, for instance, team spirit or innovativeness of this employee? If we do that, then we open up for subjectivity. And we may also start to compare our sales individual in order to understand his or her performance by comparing performance and make it more relative. So these are extremely important design choices, and they will affect the behavioral consequences of the system is the point. And they will do that in combination. So that is basically the meta structure of the system that we should maybe also start to pay a bit more attention towards. And that's maybe also something that we can use in empirical research. So when we describe a system, we do not only focus on what we measure and how the targets are set and what the weights are, but also tell the story about, well, how much subjectivity included, how much collectivity is included, and how much relativity is included, to follow the dimensions that are a bit more abstract, but represent these design qualities that certainly also matters when it comes to understanding the effectiveness of the system. Okay, I guess that was about it. So Thanks a lot for your attention.
Professor Yodamari, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Hansen. It's a great pleasure for me to have this opportunity to discuss and to debate. And of course, this paper is very well developed, so it's so difficult for me to make some suggestions, but I will do my best. Just a moment. So I made some slides about your presentation. The summary, as you said, your research questions, as you said, is about the characteristics of PMS, and particularly about four design qualities: diversity, collectivity, subjectivity, and relativity. And how and why does these design qualities depend on each other in the context of performance evaluation? So the author explored the roles of four design qualities in a PMS that evaluates an employee's performance, in particular incentive provision. So the three types of design qualities are considered: distortion, risk, and manipulations, that like the bad side of the performance management. First comments. The paper, as I said, is very well developed. Focus on the design quality. That is a practical problem, significant practical problem. Today, our program, our audience is composed by professionals that are studying a professional DBA and a professional Master of Science. So this kind of audience is particularly interested in hearing you. Yeah? And your framework addresses an essential aspect of PMS, which is employee evaluation. And that's a subject that, in my view, is very important. It's sometimes not covered in the literature. And you combine these three PMS design consequences that, as I said, the bad side of PMS, like distortion, risks, and manipulation based on merchant work. And frameworks, in my view, are totally necessary, and they can attract the attention of academics and practitioners. So I think you are lucky because you are developing a framework, and framework, in my view, are welcome and are necessary, in particular for professionals that are designing the PMS. And just some reflections to discuss, Professor Hansen. Based on the concept of system thinking, like Greenwatch, Kennedy, and Bansal, I wonder if you could explore the description of this theory as a way of considering the mutual interplay between theory and practice. So, like your motivation, because your motivation, in my view, is inspired in the needs of practitioners. Practitioners need to design PMS. So they are looking for new models, new frameworks, and like Malm and Brown framework, or Merchant and Van der Steen, and levers of control by Simons, etc. So I think this is an important paper. I wonder if you could highlight the framework when PMS is more important for incentives, particularly regarding the consequence. So when the incentives is high, how your framework is more or less important. That I wonder if you could highlight this kind of discussion. Of course, the paper has the size of paper has limitations, some words, etc. But emphasizes I think you could put emphasis on the importance of reward and how these interrelationships are increased when the importance of PMS has more importance for compensation. The other point is about the accuracy. I was thinking about how I could suggest some points for you, because it's as I said, it's difficult. But for example, accuracy sometimes many performance measures are not totally accurate. They are providing in temporary basis. The quality is not good because sometimes they are not. They are temporary. They are timelines. So I am asking if the question, the dimension of accuracy is included in your framework. For example, 360 degrees perspective, like evaluation of performance. Yeah. So the other point is about, for example, the performance measures developed by peers or self-evaluation. Yeah. If it is included or not in the diversity dimension in your model. Yeah. Because sometimes performance measures about the employees sometimes are developed by the peers, and sometimes in many performance measurement systems they include the self perspective. So the employee made his or she her performance evaluation. And other points that I would like to talk is about timelines. For example, I think of course you are focused on the design, yes. So, but timelines, I don't know if it's about the design or the moment that the performance measures are informed to the employees. So in what time basis this kind of performance measures are informed to the employees. And the other aspect that I was thinking is about transparency. If the performance measures are transparent, totally transparent, viewed by the other peers, other colleagues or not, yeah? Like peer monitoring, that is an aspect that I was thinking about that. And of course, accuracy, yeah. So that's my some points that I made. And one other point, when they're just about a comment, in fact, it's not a question, but I was thinking that critically speaking, in a critical perspective, managers also could manipulate performance measures in detriment of the employees. So it's like a distortion, but not made by the employees, but made by managers. That's my some comments about you. Yeah. And thank you for this opportunity. Good luck with your paper, Professor Hansen. After I can make some questions from the audience. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. It makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Let's start with some questions. The first question from the audience is, when applying relativity in performance measurement, how can organizations ensure that comparisons between employees are made fairly, particularly when roles and responsibilities may vary significantly?
Sorry, the final part of the question, can you read it again? There was something about the connection.
Yeah. Yes, the question is, when applying the relativity in performance measurements, how can organizations ensure that comparisons between employees are made fairly, particularly when the roles and responsibilities may vary significantly? They are very different. So the question is
I got it.
About the fair.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and a very it refers to a quite significant problem, because when we talk about relativity, it is of course necessary that the ones that we compare and the ones that we relatively evaluate are comparable. So that is an issue, and if we have too much difference, then the use of relative performance evaluation will create too much demotivation, perceptions of unfairness, and other things that are quite negative. So a great job to do here when it comes to relative performance evaluation is to make peer groups, and that is of course also about identifying agents that are comparable. It can't be that they are too different, and then we cannot apply, or we can always apply relativity, but then it will be perceived as unfair, and it will lead to demotivation. And that is an unfortunate thing for the for the organization. So one way to deal with it is to work very hard on making sure that we are comparable, the agents that we that we include. Sorry, and that is a tricky question. The other thing is, of course, that it will lead to competition, and it will create, if we use it in an incentive system, and that will lead to lack of collaboration. But if it's designed properly, we will only use it in situations where this collaboration is maybe not so important, or it could also be the case that we supplement the relative evaluation with another type of measure, for instance, a subjective measure that measure the agents or the employees' collaboration. So you can combine a relative performance evaluation with a subjective one that focus more on collaboration, and thereby you can mitigate the negative effects, and that is about the interdependencies, right, between those two dimensions. So, and that is what we should start to think more about. Well, if we do one thing with one dimension that is maybe negative to the organization, then we can add another dimension that can maybe compensate for that effect. But you're absolutely right that the question is that well, it's first of all a matter of comparability, because if we cannot compare, we will lead into trouble. It will lead into trouble and to issues that are not very motivating for the individuals.
Thank you. The second question is about that. What are some examples of dysfunctional and functional consequences that arise when interactions between the four qualities dimensions influence individual outcomes in performance incentive systems?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. There are, of course, tons of functional and dysfunctional consequences of applying the qualities. So it is also a matter of your theoretical lens, what you see, basically, right? But if we, what I draw on here are literature that is based in organizational economics, and what we also refer to in accounting literature as behavioral based. So it's behavioral based accounting research. And they point towards, for instance, when it comes to collectivity, a dysfunctional consequence of collectivity is free riding. So the individual do not feel so responsible because there are also others that do the work in a collective measure. And that aspect can actually be, again, mitigated by adding maybe subjectivity. So you also have a manager that assess the individual employees' team performance and to what extent that they actually evaluate. It can also be that you actually combine a collective measure and an individual measure, and that is what we sometimes often see. But also in terms of functional effects, as a more positive effects, we could have a system that is diverse, and it opens up for measuring aspects like innovativeness, and that is an important thing for the organization. And if we add maybe even also subjectivity, we can even better capture what subjectivity is all about. So in that regard, there is a complementary and positive, two positive effects that goes together in order to dealing with making the system more complete and reducing distortion. Because if we don't measure innovativeness and there are no other control mechanism that deals with that, then we will have dysfunctional or incongruent, distorted behavior.
So, other questions for the audience? Okay, I think no. Professor Hansen, we are a professional program, the DBA, master and doctor. So many of our students, PhD students, work on companies and family business in Brazil and multinational companies in Brazil. So we are particularly interested. If you want, we are open to discuss more, of course, in private, about the continuity of our research, etc. Okay. And then another opportunity, we can invite you, could invite you to be here between us and stay for a time. And so it would be a pleasure. So
yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely. You can always reach out to me. It's interesting to see what goes on in your institution and the research that you conduct as well. So that's also very inspiring to me, and it's also very valuable to get new eyes, so to speak, on one's research. And the one you have given me here today, I really appreciate that. And if you can send me your PowerPoints, that would be super excellent. That would be good for me. So all feedback is, of course, very important. So thanks a lot for that.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, Professor Allan Hansen, we are a pleasure and very honored for your lecture. We expect, as Professor Yodamari said, to embrace more opportunities to talk to you and your university. And so we close today's online lecture. Remember that following the meeting schedule, there will be an in-person event later at 7 p.m. at Wilson de Souza Lopes Auditorium at Mackenzie University, São Paulo campus. And we invite you all to join us. So thank you again, Professor. It was an honor. Thank you, Professor Yodamari, and thanks for all the attendance. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Allan. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Bye.